Hello everyone, I again welcome you all on my YouTube channel Success Pharma. Today in this video we will discuss about enzyme inhibitions and drugs which are used in enzyme inhibitions. So it is very much important for NIPER and GPAT exams. जैसे कि हमने लास्ट वीडियो में एंजाइम्स, पार्ट्स ऑफ एंजाइम्स, एक्टिव साइट एंड थ्योरीज ऑफ एंजाइम्स देखी थी. As we discuss about the apoenzymes, coenzymes and cofactor. Apoenzymes means proteinaceous part of enzyme. Other than proteinaceous part means cofactor and coenzymes. Cofactor means inorganic part of enzyme and coenzyme means organic part of enzyme. And finally, they leads to form hollow enzymes, that is complete enzymes. So let's start the video. As we already discussed about the kinetics of enzymes, it includes Michaelis-Menten kinetics. So here some important conclusions of Michaelis-Menten kinetics. So यहाँ आपको 3 conditions दिख रही होंगी. First condition, when S equal to Km. S means substrate concentration is equal to Km. So the equation is reduced to be V equal to Vmax by 2. Second condition, when S is greater than Km, the equation is reduced to V equal to Vmax. Third condition, when S is less than Km, so the equation is reduced to V equal to Vmax by K into S. Now, this is the most important slide where we discuss about enzyme actions. When enzyme combine with the substrate to form enzyme-substrate complex, E plus S leads to the formation of ES. ES is the enzyme-substrate complex. Enzyme-substrate complex form product which leads to form free enzymes. ES P plus E. P means product and free enzymes में convert होगा. Next, enzyme action are of 3 types: stimulation, induction and inhibitions. Stimulation means increase enzyme actions. जब भी एंजाइम एक्शन इंक्रीज होगा उस प्रोसेस को स्टिमुलेशन बोलेंगे. इंडक्शन मीन्स स्टिमुलेटिंग सिंथेसिस ऑफ एंजाइम्स, मीन्स सिंथेसिस ऑफ न्यू एंजाइम्स, मीन्स एंजाइम इंडक्शंस. एंजाइम इनहिबिशंस मीन्स रिडक्शन इन द एंजाइम एक्शंस. Always the drugs which reduce the enzyme actions, they are known as inhibitors. So we will focus on the inhibitor type of drugs. Enzyme inhibitions. Inhibitors are the substance that bind to an enzyme and interfere in its activity. Inhibitors वह substance होते हैं जो किसी भी enzyme से bind करके उसकी activity को interfere करेंगे. It can prevent the formation of enzyme-substrate complex or can prevent ES breakdown to enzyme and product. यह substances enzyme-substrate complex नहीं बनने देंगे और product formation को भी inhibit करेंगे. Inhibitors are the chemicals that reduce the rate of enzymatic reactions. Inhibitors chemicals हो सकते हैं that can reduce the rate of enzymatic reactions. First condition, when E plus S to form ES complex to form product and free enzyme. Second one is the when E plus S plus I to form EI. EI is the enzyme inhibitor complex. So no product formation takes place. There can be irreversible and reversible type of inhibitors. Simply आप इसे ऐसे समझ सकते हैं, कोई भी inhibitor drug किसी भी enzyme substrate complex से bind करेगी and product formation को inhibit करेगी. Now types of inhibitions. So there is a 2 type of inhibition. First one is the selective inhibition and second one is the non-selective inhibition. In case of selective inhibition, the particular drug or inhibitor drug is bind to the particular enzyme in a specific manner. But in case of non-selective, particular drug is not bind to the particular enzyme. So there is a no specificity or no specificity between the enzyme and inhibitor drug. So non-selective are of limited use or limited applications. The selective inhibitions is again classified into 3 types: non-competitive, competitive and uncompetitive types. The competitive is again classified into 2 types: equilibrium type and non-equilibrium types. So the equilibrium type is also known as a reversible type of inhibition. and non-equilibrium is called irreversible type of inhibitions. The equilibrium type binding between the enzyme and inhibitor drug by weak interactions. So by increasing the substrate concentration, inhibitor is replaced. But in case of non-equilibrium type, there is a permanent or covalent bond between the inhibitor drug and enzymes. First one is the competitive enzyme inhibitions. Substrate and inhibitor drug have similar structure and same binding site on enzyme, so there is a competition for the binding to active site. Inhibitor and substrate bind to active site at different time. सिंपली आप इसे ऐसे समझ सकते हैं, दो पर्सन्स हैं और सेम चेयर है, एक चेयर पे दोनों पर्सन्स को बैठना है. तो जो पर्सन्स मीन्स वन इज द सबस्ट्रेट, सेकेंड वन इज द इनहिबिटर एंड चेयर इज द एंजाइम. तो ये जो पर्सन्स है वो एक टाइम पे उस चेयर पे एक ही बैठेगा, बिकॉज देयर इज अ कॉम्पिटिशन फॉर द सेम चेयर बिटवीन द टू पर्सन्स. सो ओनली एट अ टाइम वन कैन सिट ऑन दैट चेयर. On the basis of binding forces, competitive type of inhibition again classified into two types. First one is the equilibrium or reversible type. Second one is the non-equilibrium or irreversible type. In case of equilibrium type, the inhibitor bind to the enzyme by weak forces and inhibitor is replaced by the substrate after some time. This type of inhibition is dependent upon the concentration of substrate. Second one is the non-equilibrium, where the inhibitor or drug bind to the enzyme by strong forces, that is covalent bonding, and it is irreversible type. This type of inhibition does not depend upon the concentration of substrate. Simply आप इसे ऐसे समझ सकते हैं, जब भी कोई inhibitor और drug किसी भी enzyme से bind करेगी, when it is bind by the weak forces, so it can be replaced by increasing the concentration of substrate, so substrate can replace the inhibitor. But in case of non-equilibrium, there is a strong force between the enzyme and inhibitor, so it cannot be replaced, or it is a permanent type of bonding. So in case of non-equilibrium, it is known as irreversible type of inhibitions. Now this is the most important point for NIPER and GPAT exam. The examples of drug which are cause reversible type of inhibitions. So here drug, substrate and enzyme are given. The different drugs are used to bind with different enzymes and they mimics the structure with the substrate. So the substrate and drug having the similar types of structure. First example is sulfonamide. Sulfonamides are the antibiotics which are used to kill the bacterial cell. So sulfonamide mimics the structure of PABA, that is para-aminobenzoic acid, and sulfonamide bind to the bacterial folate synthetase and finally inhibit the bacterial DNA RNA synthesis and inhibit the bacterial cell growth. Second example is physostigmine. Physostigmine is a cholinergic drug which increases the concentration of acetylcholine in our body, and it mimics the structure of acetylcholine and bind to the acetylcholinesterase enzyme. Simply acetylcholinesterase acetylcholine का ब्रेकडाउन करता है. जब acetylcholine का लेवल अपनी बॉडी में कम होगा तो physostigmine एज अ कोलिनर्जिक ड्रग यूज करते हैं. physostigmine इन प्लेस ऑफ acetylcholine बाइंड करेगा कोलिनेस्टरेज से और acetylcholine की कंसंट्रेशन को बॉडी में इंक्रीज करेगा. Third example is methyl dopa and carbidopa. It is used in case of Parkinson's disease. So the substrate is levodopa. Levodopa and methyl dopa carbidopa have similar structure and bind to the dopa decarboxylase enzyme. Fourth one is the maclobimide. Maclobimide drug having similar structure to catecholamine and it bind to the monoamine oxidase A enzyme and used as an antidepressant drug. Next is the allopurinol. Allopurinol is used in case of gout. Gout is a disease where allopurinol is used. Allopurinol have similar structure to hypoxanthines and bind to the enzyme xanthine oxidase. Next one is the captopril. Captopril is a most important antihypertensive drug. It bind to the angiotensin converting enzyme and it have the similar type of structure as angiotensin 1. So captopril is a ACE inhibitor. Next one is the letrozole and estrozole. Letrozole and estrozole are the steroidal drugs which bind to the aromatase enzyme and inhibit the aromatase enzyme, and it having the similar type of structure as testosterone and androstenedione. Next one is the finasteride. Finasteride having similar structure as testosterone and it bind to the enzyme 5-alpha reductase, and it is known as a 5-alpha reductase inhibitor drug. Second one is the non-equilibrium type or irreversible type of inhibitions. So first example is organophosphate having similar structure to acetylcholine and bind to the acetylcholinesterase enzyme. It is permanent type of binding. Second one is the methotrexate which bind to the dihydrofolate reductase enzyme and having similar structure to dihydrofolic acid, that is DHFA. So the permanent type of bonding is there, so it is known as irreversible type of inhibitions. Now, non-competitive enzyme inhibitions. In this inhibition, the inhibitor drug bind other than active site and do not compete with the substrate. Means जो inhibitor drug है वो active site के अलावा second site पर bind होगी, that is known as allosteric site. And the structure similarity between the inhibitor and substrate is not necessary. Next, inhibitor and substrate bind to the enzyme at the same time because the binding of both are different. Inhibitor और substrate एक time पर ही enzyme से bind कर सकते हैं because both having the different site. In this diagram, the inhibitor drug bind to the allosteric site and active site is for the substrate. So both substrate and inhibitor bind to the enzyme at the same time. After competitive enzyme inhibitions, second one is the non-competitive enzyme inhibitions. आपको competitive type में 2 points याद रखने हैं, equilibrium type and non-equilibrium type of inhibitions plus उनके examples. Now, in case of non-competitive type, there is no requirement of structure similarity between inhibitor and substrate. Means inhibitor drug जरूरी नहीं है कि आपकी substrate के structure के similar होगी. So we should only focus on the enzymes. So first example is acetazolamide. It is used as carbonic anhydrase inhibitor. Second one is aspirin or endomethacin. These are non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs and used to inhibit cyclooxygenase enzyme. It is known as COX enzyme. Third one is disulfiram. Disulfiram is used as aldehyde dehydrogenase enzyme inhibitor. Next one is omeprazole. Omeprazole is used as proton pump inhibitor, and in case of acidity, we should use omeprazole. It work on proton potassium ATPase pump and inhibit this pump and reduce the concentration of H+ ion in our stomach and finally reduces the HCl secretions. Digoxin. Digoxin is obtained from cardiac glycosides and it is used in case of CHF. CHF is congestive heart failure disease. It work on sodium potassium ATPase pump and it block the sodium potassium ATPase pump. Next one is theophylline. Theophylline is used as phosphodiesterase inhibitor. Next is propylthiouracil. It work on peroxidase enzyme. Next one is the lovastatin. Lovastatin is used as HMG coenzyme reductase inhibitor. HMG is 5-hydroxy 3-methyl glutaryl coenzyme reductase. So lovastatin is used as an antilipidemic drug. Next one is sildenafil. Sildenafil is used as phosphodiesterase 5 inhibitor. Last one is uncompetitive enzyme inhibitions. In this type of inhibitions, the inhibitor drug bind to the enzyme substrate complex, and this type of inhibition is rare and not clinically used. Means इस टाइप के इनहिबिशन में जो ड्रग है वो एंजाइम सबस्ट्रेट कॉम्प्लेक्स से डायरेक्टली बाइंड करेगी और ये इस टाइप का इनहिबिशन बहुत ज्यादा क्लिनिकली यूज्ड नहीं होता है। Next is value of Km and Vmax in enzyme inhibition. It is very much important. So here three conditions is given. First one is equilibrium type, second one is non-equilibrium type and third one is non-competitive enzyme inhibitions. तो आपको यहाँ पर Michaelis-Menten constant और velocity of maximum reaction Km and Vmax given दिए हुए हैं। So first equilibrium type Km is increase and Vmax is unchanged. In non-equilibrium type, Km is increase, Vmax is decrease. In case of non-competitive enzyme inhibitions, Km unchanged and Vmax increased. Generally, जब भी enzyme inhibitions होता है तो velocity of maximum reactions decrease होती है, means enzyme inhibitions means rate of reaction is decreased. So in case of equilibrium, Vmax unchanged because on increasing the substrate concentration, the inhibitor action is stopped. So Vmax is unchanged in case of equilibrium type. But in case of non-equilibrium means permanent binding of inhibitor to the enzyme, so Vmax is permanently decreased. But in case of non-competitive type, Vmax is increased because there is substrate and inhibitor bind to the enzyme at different site. Thank you. मेरे वीडियोस को लाइक और शेयर जरूर करें। एट लास्ट, तुम मुझको कब तक रोकोगे? मुट्ठी में कुछ सपने लेकर भरकर जेबों में आशाएं, दिलों में बस अरमा यही कुछ कर जाएं, कुछ कर जाएं। थैंक यू सो मच।